Earful Tower listeners, it's another Monday in Paris. That means another episode of the Earful Tower. But if you're tuning in for the very first time, I figured I'd take the chance to just say what you're listening to. This is a podcast all about Paris and France. I'm Oliver G. I'm just going to kind of guide you through this country and city as I figure it out, with the help each week of special guests who know the best. Today we got a really good guest. We got Cara Black, the author, the crime fiction author. She's the one that wrote all the Murder in Belleville, Murder in the Marais, all those kind of detective books starring Amy Leduc. And we had a good old chat about, well, we talked about everything. We talked about her books. We talked about why paying in euros isn't sexy. We talked about the San Francisco coffee scene. We talked about, a lot about Paris. And we even talked about if Julius Caesar had a Paris blog, what it would be about. So that's coming up in a second, but I just want to point out a few things. Firstly, Cara said a good quote. She said, and you'll hear it in a second, but she said, the true heroes are anonymous. And I like that, but I want to say who my true heroes are, and that is the Patreon supporters to this show. I want to dedicate this show to you guys because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be sitting here doing it. So enormous thank you to you guys. We had a big milestone just last night. Someone subscribed to make the total to over $1,000 a month. So that is well on the way to a salary. And you guys are my heroes, quite simply. So thank you deeply, honestly, and sincerely for doing that. But anyway, on with the episode with Cara Black. One thing you need to know is she says the word flics a lot, or un flic, and that is a cop. So Cara's using the slang there. You're prepared. I'm prepared. Oh yeah, and we also did 2 videos together. One, we did a walk show on the Rue de Paradis, which is where Cara set one of her books, Murder in the Rue de Paradis. So we did a walk show looking for good murder scenes, pretty funny stuff there. That one's for Patreon. But we also did the Earful Tower's first video on a scooter. We retraced the steps of the main detective from the book, Amy Leduc. We retraced her scooter ride between her home on the Ile Saint-Louis and her office in the first arrondissement. So check that out on the new YouTube channel. Anyway, as for today's episode, hang around at the end I'm going to announce the winner of the walking tour from last week's episode. And I'm also going to read out a really lovely review from an American teacher. Let's get into it.
One man, one country, one red scooter. Here's the Earful Tower with Oliver G.
Cara Black.
Hi.
Welcome to the studio.
Bonjour.
On a really rainy day.
Yeah. Where's the sun, Oliver?
I don't know, because it's meant to be, isn't it like legally spring or something?
Sort of, yeah. But we're here in your studio, and I'm looking out the little skylight window. We're in the Chambre à Bonne, that's your radio station, and it's charming.
For anyone out there who's thinking, Cara Black, never heard of her before, pick up a book, guys. Go to the library. This is what can we say? The queen of crime fiction.
Oh, okay, I'll take that.
I went for it. Yeah. And
yeah.
We're going to talk a bit about Paris, a bit about crime fiction, and a bit about yourself. So I'll start with a really easy question. How do you write a good detective book? What are the ingredients?
The ingredients are using the art of misdirection, I like to say.
Right.
Planting these clues, in these wonderful places in Paris, in these corners. And, it's not a treasure hunt because they have more social issues, but it's about, kind of finding something interesting or quirky or very Parisian and working that into a story. And, of course, killing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've killed people everywhere, right?
Every arrondissement. Well, yeah, a lot of them.
So I think every one of the books is set in a different arrondissement, or at least sort of based in. Do you say that's set in them? That's where sort of the action takes place.
Yeah, there's sort of a character in the story too. I like it to be organic. Why my detective would be there and what's specific about that place. The ambiance. So that's sort of a character, I think.
And can we talk favorites? What was your sort of favorite darling child of the 18 that you've done so far?
I love all my children.
No, that's not acceptable. There's always one child that you like more than the others, at least arrondissement-wise.
Yeah, well, I love the Murder on the Left Bank, the Butokai, because it came from this story that I heard, and it was like, this just has to be told, and one time I saw a graffiti in the metro, and it was in French. It said, "The true heroes are anonymous," and I just thought that was fantastic, because it's really true. And there's all these hidden stories about during World War II and about the Gobelin, the tapestry factory and what's going on there. And the street art, and the Asian quartier, and there's so much there, and I just wanted to bring that about, and it really kind of, I don't know, that one's grabbed me right now a lot. But of course, I love my first book too, Murder in the Marais, because that was my first way of getting into writing, and it took me 3.5 years.
Is that sort of an average time to write a book? 3.5 years?
Oh no, year and 3 months now.
A year and 3 months, you got it done. You just got to crack that 1 year barrier.
Yeah.
Then you'll be churning them out. That'll be awesome. Yeah. So tell me, when you said, I noticed you rolled your R when you said Marais, which suggests to me that you know French. Am I right? So how did it come to, talk me through how you came to be, you're American. Where are you from in America?
Yeah, San Francisco.
San Francisco. So how it came to be that a San Franciscan, do you say that?
Yep.
A San Francisco is writing crime in Paris.
Well, blame it on the nuns in my French convent school outside of San Francisco.
They're a lot. They've got a lot to answer for, those nuns.
Oh, they do, and they taught us ancient French and all these words people, like chausseur and soulier for chausseur and all these words no one uses anymore. But my dad was a Francophile. We are not French, and he sent me to this French convent school, and the nuns were French.
Why did he send you to a French convent school?
Because he thought the education was better, and he wanted me to learn French. Sure. But of course, the French is not what people speak on the streets today. It's like bullets and it's argot, and when I talk to the flics, they have their own language. And the latest thing it's this thing in French when people they say le mat, right, for le matin.
Right.
But you've got to know that that's chopped off.
Sure, yeah. They like to chop the end off words. We had the regular listeners might remember James in the very first season. He was a Frenchman who used to, he's still alive. Mm-hmm. He still does this, just not on the show, but he shortened the place names of everywhere. So Invalides was Inva. And I think Montparnasse for Montparnasse. And I thought he was just trying to be cool. But he said, no, everyone does that, mate.
Right. You've just got to be tuned, like you're, tuned into that and know that that's what's happening in a conversation. But then, so I had this weird Francophile background, and my uncle had actually studied art in Paris after World War II, and he says that he studied under Georges Braque until Braque kicked him out of the art class for some reason. Knowing my uncle, that's not a stretch, but and so he talked about this, about France in the 60s, and then I came here and I met actually the author Romain Gary. Mm-hmm. And he was so kind, and he took me for a cafe. And we walk into the cafe. It was on Rue de Paradis. And we walk in, and every day he went, right? He was a habitué, you say, and there was an espresso and a cigar waiting for him. And the cafe man said, well, what about her? And he goes, oh, she'll have the same. So I had my first espresso and cigar with Monsieur Gary. He was so cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you ever return the favor to young writers?
Sure.
No? Give them cigars?
Yeah, I do.
So where are you at habitué in Paris?
Now I'm in Belleville, staying with my friend.
Is that because you're planning for a book? No, you've done Belleville.
I've done Belleville. It's just my friend's apartment, and she invites me to stay in. I cat sit. Actually, I'm cat sitting right now. Oh. So I kind of do,
How's it going, the cat sitting?
I fed her this morning. She's happy.
Okay, that's good.
She curls up next to me, so it's very nice.
Do you tend to stay, like when you're researching for a book, so you did the Butokai one most recently, did you go and stay there? Because obviously you live in America. So do you come in here and just base yourself there, live and breathe it, meet the local police, or is it more sort of day trips? How do you...
Yeah, it's a good question, but, it's been like 18 years, 20 years I've been writing, so I've sort of built up this little network, or I start, asking a flic, I say, I'm really interested in the Butokai. Do you know someone who works there or somebody who used? And my friend actually found a guy who is working there, and he met, I don't know if we could say this on the radio, but
hang on, is it a swear word?
Yeah.
It means cover the children's ears right now. Cara's about to swear. Okay, go on.
Sort of. Well, he works in the 13th. He lives in the 11th. And I said, well, why don't you live in the 13th? And he goes, because I don't shit where I eat.
Oh, wow.
But, excuse me for being vulgar, but that's what he said.
You're just quoting a cop,
right.
Which I should add, flic is cop for anyone out there who doesn't speak the language of Cara Black and her books.
Yeah.
But before we press record, you said that you're going to meet a flic for lunch.
Yes.
So what's that like, sitting down and sort of talking to a cop? Is this all off the... are they allowed to talk? Because I tried to interview a firefighter the other day, and he goes, "Whoa, man, you're gonna have to go through the top because they're military."
Right.
And he said it's very unlikely that you're gonna get anywhere.
It's through friends of friends, a connection, and and they know me now, and they'll say, well, her books are set in the 90s. There's nothing now, but you can tell her about a case or just. But you know what they said to me? She introduced me to someone, and she tells me things and says, okay, this doesn't go any further. And of course, I write fiction. It's set time before. And I said, I took the guy out who was in charge of the Princess Diana investigation, Jean-Claude Julius. And I would take him out for lunch and wine. And I said, finally, why do you do this? He said, I want you to get it right. Well, of course, you buy good wine, but I want you to get it correct. So there's that thing about people wanting their job, they're proud of what they do. So it's kind of like they know, they like Polar, right, here, and they understand. And I always say I was inspired by Léo Marais, which readers should find because he's wonderful. The books are set in the 50s and 60s, and Tardy did the bande dessinée, the graphic novels. So it's really wonderful. You see Paris at that time, but he has a private detective, and he did arrondissement by arrondissement. So I just basically copied him, updating it.
Putting it in English.
Putting it in English with a hip woman who has a scooter and a dog and lives on Ile Saint-Louis.
So the timeline is that, you started and then you've done prequels and then you've done sequels. How far into the future can this go? It's set in the 90s.
Good question. Well, see, I think paying in euros is not sexy. I think the francs are more sexy. So I kind of like that because we remember Philippe Noiret, the actor, he'd be a cop in Stalingrad and he'd be smoking and pulling in the guys, roughing them up and getting information. I mean, it's that time, rough, edgy. Before 9/11, it's not politically correct.
Right. So that's the definite answer is when they change the euro currency. That's when you're going to...
Yeah.
You would never go beyond that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Well, you should never say never.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
For all we know, they'll invent a 21st arrondissement, and then you'll have to write another one. And then, you have to set in the future, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard they called Père Lachaise the 21st arrondissement?
No.
The cemetery?
It's big enough.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So if you ever do write that book set in the cemetery, just a little byline for me there. That's all I ask for. So what do you... Sure. We also talk a bit about Paris on this show, so I thought we could, you could tell me a little bit about your favorite kind of thing to do in this city when you're not planning for your books.
Oh, but everything's fodder. But yes,
that's true. Yeah, right.
No, it's true.
It's kind of the same for me with this show.
Right.
Like every time I'm meeting someone or finding something interesting, I'm thinking that would make a good show. Yeah, you can't escape it.
Yeah, when you were talking about playing basketball at the wall in the Marais, I'm like, yeah, totally. For me, it's walking, the flaneur, and it's like always getting lost. It's really perfect because I'll forget to turn somewhere, and then I'm in this other area, and I'm like, my God, this is so amazing. Yeah. Or I have often been on the bus, and my feet are blistered because I've been walking so much, and I just take it the wrong direction. I go to the end, right, and then I turn around and come back, and the people are different, the quartier changes, and I'm like interested, and I get off, or I stay on the bus, and I start to take notes of people having conversations on the bus. Yeah. I'm shameless that way.
So, do you write it in do you do what's called shorthand as well?
My sort of shorthand, which is awful. And sometimes I record people in the cafe because when I go back to San Francisco to write, I need to go back to that cafe and that, the thing of the orange juicer and
the ambient sounds of a French cafe. Because it doesn't work in San Francisco cafes, I imagine.
Well, it's not the same.
What's the San Francisco cafe scene like?
Oh, we're getting very French. Yeah, they have all the... We have good coffee, we have good patisserie. Of course, it's not like here, but there's a big cafe scene in San Francisco.
Someone told me that there's a huge French... connection San Francisco to France, and I can't remember who it was now, maybe listeners will remember, it was on the show, and they said that it was to do with the Alliance Française.
Yes.
Started there, I think, or was the first...
I don't know if it started there. I mean, I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
But there is one. It's very vibrant. We have 2 French schools in San Francisco.
Right.
We have a big French population who work in Silicon Valley or Silicon Valley, as they say.
So they call you Cara Noir.
And I always wear noir. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So hello to all you listeners in San Francisco. I know you're out there, but I wanted to ask you a bit of a slightly negative question. What's the worst thing about Parisians?
The worst thing, well, I have to say, and people, the strikes. You know, and I understand why it happens, but it's really, as we know, a drag when you're planning to go somewhere and there's a strike, and you can't get there, or you have to. But I mean, I don't work here or have 9 to 5, and I just pity all those people who can't take the hour to work, and I think, okay, that's part of the spirit. I understand, but that's the thing that can really, what do you call it? Put a monkey wrench in the works, right? If you've got something planned.
Isn't it a spanner in the works?
Spanner in the works. Thank you,
Cara. I'm worried about the next book coming out. That actually reminds me of a question. Do they because your books are set in the 90s, and when you write them, do you ever, does your editor ever get back to you and go, Cara, you've put an iPhone on in page 90? Do you slip into the future? Is it hard to write in the past?
It's getting more of a challenge. When I first started writing in the mid 94, it was about that time. I was just writing what I saw. Yeah. What I like to do is go back to that day in that season at that time with this happening, and Chirac was president and doing all the things he later almost got indicted for.
Right.
And that time, so that you can be there. But now I have to go, and of course there was no Google then, so you have to remember and go back. But it's not that hard because I was here so much and staying with my friend and then watching my friend's child for a while and cat sitting. But I can go to the library or down to Stanford, and I go in the library and they have microfiche of Le Monde for every day.
Right.
So I can look,
So microfiche is like when you can read what is it? Do you literally put...
it's all in little film, and you enlarge it.
Yeah.
You read the newspaper of 1998, what strike was going on, what was happening in this street, and what,
Cool.
I can go, oh, yeah, of course. So, But technology... there was the Minitel, right? Remember that?
I don't remember it, but I've read about it.
Yeah.
This is like the first sort of internet phone.
Yes, exactly. And the French, invented it.
The French essentially invented the internet and the phone, not smartphone, but then they didn't develop it and everybody else did, right?
Right, yeah. So, but I don't bring out Minitel very much in the stories because it's so French, and I think I do it in one of them, but everyone goes, oh, you have to write about the Minitel. And I'm like, Americans don't get the Minitel. Yeah. But, if I can weave it in the story so it feels like it's organic, then I can. But I don't like to pull people out with saying, Wired magazine wasn't there, or, do you know what I mean? The technology, I don't want to pull them out of the story. So it's a little dance there.
Yeah, a tough one. Because, you just... I guess when you've got your cafe sound on and you're reading Le Monde and stuff like that, you just transport yourself back to that world.
That's how I do my best.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I have to come here and do research to kind of get that, to be a sponge. I don't write when I'm here. I'm just in sponge mode, and it's like everything has to come in, and then I go home and I don't want to regurgitate or whatever in a different way.
Yeah.
But we've, of course, there's the story. Why is she doing this? What is Amy Leduc? Where is she in her life? What man has she met? What about all these things?
So I asked you the negative things about Parisians. What are the positive things about Paris? That's probably the easiest question you've ever got, but I still would like to hear your answer.
The light filtering through the trees in the Place des Vosges, and sitting on the bench and hearing the fountain and the gravel squishing or crunching and smelling coffee, and it's just being in the light and how it hits that stone. And you live here, but it's
but I like to hear you say it. You say it better than I do.
I love the Place des Vosges. That's always been it was never, when I first went there, it was dirty and grimy.
Right.
And it was not bourgeoisie or fancy, or, of course, fancy, but it was a different time, and that old Paris, I'm always searching for that old Paris, that old, and there's bits, and I found bits of old Paris for the next book in the 12th. Everyone goes, oh, it's so boring there. And I went, yeah, but there's a really good spot for a body. I just saw.
I love that's how you think. I love that's your sponge mode now when you're walking around. That could be a good murder.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't think out loud. You might get in trouble.
Right.
Although I guess you know all the cops, so it doesn't matter. Do you want to hear my recent finding of old Paris that I'm obsessed by?
Yes.
So the old wall Philippe Auguste that was built in 1190, right? So that's along the wall where I just said before we started I play basketball.
Right.
So I had this idea to go and follow the wall, follow the path of the wall. And this is going to be an upcoming episode.
Cool.
So, So I told a few friends that was what I wanted to do. And the ones that were interested met up. and I traced the whole wall and tried to find vestige. That's the word. The vestiges. Yeah. And so because the streets are all lined up differently to how they used to be, it means there's no real path to walk. You have to sort of duck and dive, go through parks, all these places that I'd never found in the Marais, right? It all opened up to me. It was amazing. Yeah. And every time someone, it was like the Da Vinci Code or something. Every time someone opened up a door to a courtyard, if it was on the right track, I sort of jumped in there and went looking. It was amazing. It was like the best. It was the best treasure hunt I've done. Yeah,
and you've learned a lot. In the left bank, which was Murder in Saint-Germain, my friend told me about where there was this old theater where she sometimes does. She's a comedian. She does performances,
right.
And she told me, and she said, "You've got to go left here." And it was the old wall. It was one of the, not your wall, but the wall on the other side. And I could see how the theater was built into that, and then someone chopped it.
No way.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
The Theatre de Nesle, Nesle.
Oh, I've heard about that theatre.
It's fantastic.
I've got to go check that out.
Yes.
But I haven't done the left bank side of it. So, and in true Paris fashion, we've got a Paris sound coming in the background. Can you hear that?
Yep.
What is that? Someone drilling?
Yes.
Someone hiding a body? I don't know if you guys can hear that at home, but we're going to continue because it's authentic, isn't it, Cara?
Totally.
I wanted to talk about, because you talked about your main, he's really drilling there. You talked about your main character, Amy, Le Duc. Is that how you say that? Le Duc. And obviously she's got some fans of herself. And these people, you do trips where you retrace the steps. Maybe you tell me a little bit about that, because that sounds fun.
Yeah, we do them. We've done a couple of them, and we're going to do one in October. And we meet in Paris. You meet me in Paris, and we stay in this little incredible hotel near Parc Monceau that has a library.
Beautiful park.
Beautiful. And it's near where there's a chase scene in one of my books. So I said, this is perfect. We have aperitifs in the evening, and we usually go like a couple of mornings or afternoons. We go to Aimé's real office. Well, the real office, it's a real detective office. Yeah. And we visit Martine, who still runs it, who I shamelessly stole her history for. We go to Aimé's house on the Ile Saint-Louis. We're going to go in October to Butte-aux-Cailles and see where the bodies were.
Great. And this is, I've got it in front of me, October 14th to 20th, 2018. So if you're listening to this episode in 2019, you've missed it. If you're a regular listener, you can book that by going on the website carablack.com/Paris-travel. It will all be on the earfultower.com. You'll be able to find it. But maybe we can finish up with what you're looking forward to.
What I'm looking forward to. It's really interesting because I have a friend I met. He just turned 90, and I did take him for lunch yesterday, which I said. He said, my birthday was in December. I said, no, I wasn't here in December, so I'm taking you out. He was a Polish resistant, and was a titi in the Marais. He was on the street.
I don't know what a titi is.
Titi Parisien, the little street kids.
Oh, right, yeah. There's lots of stuff I don't know. Don't worry about that.
And he was like 12 years old, living in the Marais when it was a total tenement, and he remembers, very poor Jewish, he remembers walking to Rue Saint-Antoine, and the German soldiers came in.
Wow.
And, he said, we didn't know what it was. And there were all the, where they would sell the vegetables and fruits from the panier, from the carts. Yeah. There's a name for it. De saison. Marchand de saison or whatever. And that's how people bought their fruit and vegetables. And he said, one of the captains of the German soldiers went to them and he bought everything and he said, give it to the people.
Wow.
Which is this whole other side of what happened during the war. Well, of course, they were on their best behavior, right, when they occupied Paris. And he had to hide as a young Jewish boy, and he used to hide to the left of Shakespeare and Company. There was a little garret, and that was a hiding place for people. Yeah, I mean, he's full of stories, but I think his stories are important. That whole generation that are leaving us, and I want to somehow bring those stories to life in a real way, because I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but
no, I get it. Yeah. Like preserving history as told by the people who lived there.
Right, and using that in fiction, historical fiction. So maybe I've got a historical fiction thing coming up, sort of war era, just because I love that. And
I can tell by reading your books that's a big part of a lot of the books, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. What a fascinating. After reading Murder in the Marais, I started researching a lot about all. I mean, the thing with Paris is there's just so much history. Like we're talking about the Nazis now, but then we're talking about the wall before this. That's 800 years between the two of them, You know, so then there's everything between and everything before.
Right.
You know, where do you even get started?
Well, you read Caesar's account of coming to, Lutetia. That's what I went to the beginning when my husband said, if you're going to write about, that, you need to read from the very beginning. And I went, that makes sense, when they came and how everything kind of mushroomed out from Ile de la Cité and each king built the wall, dung, 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 and
What did Caesar have to say about it? I haven't read his blog.
You haven't read his blog lately. He was a pretty good writer. He was very concise, about the regiments, and he wasn't talking about cafes then.
No, I can imagine. The top 10 cafes in every arrondissement of Ile de la Cité. Right. I still would read that though.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting sometimes if you have nothing. You just think, wow, that's the first written record. Or and he was fighting with the Gauls, right? Yeah.
He was drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, I think the rain's let up, so maybe we can go out and do a walk show for all the Patreon members. But for the rest of you, this is it's been a pleasure having you in here, Cara Black. And you guys, if you've never heard of Cara before, go out and buy one of her books and get started. And then that'll keep you going for a good year or so, I think.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. It's like a trip to Paris without the airfare. That's what I say.
Wow, that's the cheapest. That's a very good one. So it's like 10 euros to get to Paris for you guys. So there'll be all the information about Cara on the website. But do yourself a favor and buy one of her books. And thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Oliver. It's been great.
You're listening to the Earful Tower podcast.
So there you have it. That was Cara Black. Quite a good episode, if you ask me. She was quite an interesting woman. Now I want to finish it off with a few extra bits. Firstly, a review that warmed my cold heart from Katie7689. I love this review. Let's see here. A true gem. 5 stars. Katie, thank you so much. Listen to this. She writes, this podcast is gold, because it's in caps with an exclamation mark. There are amazing guests and great tips. I love listening to Oliver on my way to work to get inspired for the week. I'm a French teacher in the US, and his podcasts give me so much cultural information to share with my students, and I've recommended his podcast so much that my students think I work for him. Can't wait to get back to Paris to try more tips. Vraiment magnifique. Like I said, that is just the best thing I read all week. It's really nice that you spread the word. That's the most important thing to me. So thank you so much for forcing your students to listen to it. And Katie, I don't know what to say. That's just brilliant. And all you students, if you are listening, listen to Katie as your teacher. Listen to Mrs. 7689. She knows what she's talking about. Katie 7689. There you go. Thanks for the review. Keep sending in those reviews. I love to read them. What else have I got to say? Yeah, we got a competition winner to announce. What I did is, if you missed last week's episode, it was Stephanie Quachette, and she does the Paris in Action. And she said that she'd give a free specific tour to some Patreon members. So if you guys are Patreon members, you didn't need to do anything. You're already in the competition. Now, the way that I figured I'd draw it to be completely fair is I've got the list of all you 144 patrons, and I've gone to a website here called, it's just random number generator. You put in the minimum and the maximum, so I've put 1 to 144. I'm typing as we speak, and then I'm going to press generate. Whatever number comes up, I'll count down in the list, and you're the winner. So let's go. Generate. 142. Well, that's easy to count. I'll count from the bottom. So, view all current patrons. Here it is. Scroll right down to the bottom. Write down the second name. That means it's the second person to ever subscribe on Patreon. That's Catherine Siegel. Siegel. So, there you go. When you're in Paris next, you've got a tour waiting for you, thanks to the lovely Stephanie. And I'll send you an email with more details. But that's just one of the benefits of being a Patreon subscriber. You guys, I can't really go on about it enough. That's that's how I'm going to make this into a career. So if you love this show and you think you can afford a few dollars a month, then please consider it. As for me, back on to work, check out some of those live videos. Oh yeah, one thing I really want you guys to do. I've started doing a lot of YouTube videos, and I've been talking to some really lovely YouTubers from around the globe, giving me advice, and I've been taking it all on, trying to build that YouTube channel. So if you just search for the Earful Tower on YouTube and hit that old subscribe button, that will make a big difference. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers. That's my goal for the next couple of weeks or months. So thanks very much for listening. You've been listening to the Earful Tower. Subscribe, iTunes, wherever you find your podcast, really. And I'll see you next week. Merci beaucoup.